It was around June when me and my friends decided we wanted to plan a week-long camping trip. We have done camping trips before, but we thought it would be fun to rent an Airbnb cabin in an area we had never been to. Our group consisted of 4 of us: Kyle, CJ, Ginny, and myself. We all met in junior high and have been inseparable since. We had the option to choose from 2 Airbnbs, but we decided on the cheaper option, which would cost us $100 a night. But since there was 4 of us, we were going to split the cost. From the description, it said it was a 3-bedroom cabin with 1 bathroom, lakefront, with a huge yard area surrounded by trees. It did say bears had been seen in the area as a warning, but we thought it was perfect for the price. We all packed light, bringing only essentials like hygiene products, clothes, bathing suits, a few pool inflatables, and some food and drinks. Since we knew we wouldn't have Wi-Fi either, we thought it would be perfect time to reconnect with each other and nature, so we only brought our phones. We all took 1 car thinking it would be an easier ride and cheaper on gas, considering it was a 3-hour drive. Eventually, after 3 bathroom stops, we made it to the cabin. It was sunny, quiet, minus a few loons that could be heard on the water, almost like they were calling us to the calm, cool lake water. The grass that surrounded the cabin was greener than anything I had ever seen. We all unpacked. CJ and I carried food and drinks, while the girls brought our personal bags in. On the front door, a note was left attached. Kylie read it to us as we put the beers and food into the fridge. "Hello, party of 4. I hope the drive wasn't bad. Welcome to the cabin. I trust you all, but I would like to say that there are a few rules. It is very important to follow these rules. If you don't, there may be unfortunate consequences and injury. Rule 1. Make sure to lock the car doors. There have been incidents of hikers stealing. Number 2. Pick up any garbage that is yours. Please don't litter. Number 3. Never go swimming alone. Number 4. If you want to go on a hike or a walk, do not take the path that is behind the cabin near the shed. Number 5. Do not go near the shed, and do not go into the shed. Number 6. If you see a bear or you think there may be a bear, remain inside and call the number on the bottom of this note. Number 7. Never, under any circumstances, leave the cabin after nightfall, and never go swimming at night. This is very important. Nothing to worry about. I hope you have a great vacation and remember the rules. Talk soon, Chester." I got a weird feeling reading the letter, and curiosity was running rapid to what was in the shed, but I didn't intend to find out. We spent the whole day in the water and indulged in margaritas and beers. As I soaked up the sun and worked on my tan, I noticed Ginny and CJ running off in the direction of the shed. It should be mentioned that Ginny and CJ have had an on and off thing for years, but never made it official. Maybe it was the sense of excitement, or that they didn't want to settle down. Instantly remembering the letter and called for them. "Hey, guys, we aren't allowed over there." CJ turned back, still giggling with Ginny. "Says who? That stupid note? Don't spoil my fun. No one is here to tell us no." Before I could try to pursue them, they had disappeared into the path behind the shed. Kylie and I just stared at each other. Well, we've been here for not even 2 hours and they're already breaking the rules. I'm sure it'll be fine. They should be back before the sun goes down. A few hours passed with me and Kylie trying to pass time while waiting, and as time grew closer to around 10:30 p.m. They should be back by now. Should we go try and find them? I knew Kylie was getting worried, but so was I. I knew I couldn't panic for her sake. No, they should be back any time now. They were probably fooling around in the woods. You know those two can't keep their hands off each other, but Ginny always follows the rules and is responsible. Have you tried calling them again? Service was very spotty, so it was rare that the call actually went through. Kylie just stared out the window with nothing in sight besides the shed and the path that was getting darker and darker by the minute. The shed was made out of this wood that looked like it had been weathered and had been sitting there for a long time. It had turned almost a gray color to it, as if it had been wet and placed in the sun. There was one window that was visible from the cabin and 2 large doors that were locked by a padlock. It didn't have a good vibe to it, and even if it wasn't a part of the rules, I wouldn't be caught dead near it. Like human nature, I had to relieve my bladder, and as I made my way to the bathroom, Kylie stayed glued to the window. I'm a person who overthinks, and I was panicking. It didn't help that the rules made me feel off, and here my friends were, breaking the rules already. I splashed cold water on my face. The silence was broken by my name being called. Jordan? Jordan. Something about Kylie's tone didn't feel right. Are they back? As I made my way to see what she was looking at, I could see Kylie standing there. Her face was pale. It looked like she was going to pass out or be sick. Her eyes remained glued on something on the other side of the window. As I inched toward the window to see what she was looking at, my eyes met what she was looking at. Like a moth drawn to a flame, my eyes were glued on the shed that now had a light on, and it was visible through the window. The light seeped through the boards of the little shack. Ginny and CJ must. Before I could finish the sentence, Kylie cut me off and said it wasn't them. I was so confused on what she meant until she said, I saw someone in the window of the shed and it wasn't either of them. It was dark, but whoever or whatever that is, it didn't look right. Her eyes were still glued on the shed, as if she was too afraid to look away. My first thought was, maybe it was a hiker that got lost and needed a place to stay until morning. But even if that was the case, how would they get past the padlock? At that moment, I realized that the padlock that had been on the doors was now lying on the grass. I could see it. It wasn't broken, but instead it had been unlocked. My stomach was twisting in knots, and I wasn't sure if Kylie had noticed the lock on the shed now being on the ground. But before I could ask her, a bang came from the side door that faced the lake. We jumped, and my first instinct was to hit the floor and pulled Kylie down with me. We crawled our way to be able to see the sliding door, and as we inched closer, the pounding sound on the door became louder and more aggressive. It sounded like the door was trying to be forced open, even though I had locked it when we came inside. Our eyes slowly peeked around the counter. At the door, a figure was thrashing around because of how this person was acting. I didn't notice the blood that was being left on the glass door. As my adrenaline started to rise, I realized it was Ginny at the door. She was alone and had blood on her. Without hesitation, I jumped up and ran towards the door. As I unlocked it and opened it, Ginny collapsed inside while sobbing and screaming, "Close the door! Close the door!" Kylie and I began asking questions as we were checking to see if it was her blood and where it was coming from. On the side of her ribs there was 3 large gouges that seemed to be losing blood fast. You know humans have a lot of blood, but you don't realize how much a human body actually has until it's flowing out right in front of you. After a series of questions, the only thing she could say was, "It got CJ. We were running, and he was holding my hand until it grabbed him, and his hand slipped out of mine. His screams, I ran, I left him. The doors. It wasn't human, the doors. I felt like I went into fight or flight mode. I ran to all the doors and made sure they were locked, turned off the lights, grabbed a knife from the kitchen, and made sure I had my phone. Since there was glass all around us, something in me told me to get everybody into the bathroom. The bathroom had one window that was really high up. You couldn't see in from outside, since it had to have been 7 feet off the ground, but from inside, I could stand on the edge of the tub and see out. I picked up Ginny, and Kylie followed behind until she stopped and ran back to the window in the kitchen. I wanted to go get Kylie, but I knew I couldn't leave Ginny alone since she was going in and out of consciousness, and I was applying pressure to the wounds. After what felt like minutes, but in reality it was only 30 seconds, Kylie crawled into the bathroom, and I could see tears streaming down her face that was being illuminated by the moonlight that was coming through the small window. I opened my mouth to ask what she saw, but before any words could come out, her finger slowly raised to her mouth, as if telling me to be quiet. Still on the floor, I could see her shaking hand slowly turning the doorknob and very slowly starting to close the bathroom door. The lock sounded like it was extremely loud, even though in reality it was most likely very quiet. Kylie slowly turned around and placed her back against the door and stared me in the eyes. Something about her expression told me that we were trapped and had no way of getting out. As I stared at her, I still hadn't realized that she had a pen and paper in her hand, along with a blanket from the couch. She began to write, and when she turned the paper, the words, "It isn't human. We need to block the window. It will see in. It is not a person." The pit in my stomach dropped, and the only words I seemed to mouth was, "Is it a bear?" My heart raced as she began to write again. This time, I knew what she was going to say. As she turned the paper, she slid the blanket over to me. "It is not a bear. It is tall and doesn't look right. Cover the window now." I slowly grabbed the blanket and slowly crawled onto the edge of the bathtub. And I slowly stood up. I could see out the window, and as my eyes looked over the edge of the frame, I was eye to eye with it. The best way I could describe its eyes was goat-like. Its pupils weren't circles, but thick vertical lines. They looked dead, as if there was nothing behind them. It looked bald, with a few strands of hair growing from random spots next to open flesh that was spotty all over its scalp, as if it was picking away its own flesh. I was frozen, and clearly Kylie could see it too, because I heard her breathing stop, as if she was trying to hold her breath. As it stared into the bathroom, its gaze was broken by its head snapping towards the path near the shed. The way it turned its head wasn't normal. The speed at which it turned its head should have snapped it. It was unnatural. It moved as if every movement was a glitch, like its body parts were not moving or working together. It was unnaturally skinny, and it was extremely tall. It scurried towards the woods, constantly shifting its head as if it was listening for any type of sound to follow. It vanished into the bush. Knowing I wouldn't have another chance again, I quickly put the blanket over the window so nothing could see in. Our phones didn't have any service, so we sat there till the sun came up. It was agony. Every small noise had us fearing it had come back for us. Eventually we saw sunlight appear under the bathroom door. None of us wanted to get up, and we didn't move until around 2 p.m. When we eventually came out of the bathroom, we made our way to the kitchen. Kylie got service and called for help. And as I walked to go look out the windows, I saw something taped to the window from the outside. On the paper was written, "You should have listened to the rules. I hope you enjoyed your stay. Have a good rest of your summer. Sincerely, Chester." Some people say that the open road is all the therapy a person needs. I was done with being around people, done with meds to cope with grief, just done in general. I replayed the horrific scene too many times in my head. Nothing would ever bring my little sister back. I just had to accept that she was gone, and it wasn't anyone's fault. No one to blame, no matter how much I wanted to. She was only 6. The driver didn't see her dart out between the cars, and by the time they did, it was too late. So I got a job for a trucking company, to be alone and not think anymore. And yeah, I've heard my fair share of highway horrors, but some sounded so far-fetched I figured they were just trying to rattle me. It wasn't until tonight that I had realized just how crazy it can be. I was on the Trans-Canada Highway headed to Toronto, Ontario from Kamloops, BC, so about a 20-hour drive. It was the middle of July, the air was dry and the wind was hot. It gets really hot in the truck's cabin, and I wasn't able to sleep very much because of it. Couldn't bear staring at the roof with just my thoughts. I figured it best just to keep driving. The roads were quiet and open, and I would get to Toronto earlier in the day than initially expected. I saw no flaw in my plan. I went into the store and grabbed myself a coffee and a couple Red Bulls and hit the road. It was peaceful at first. With the windows down, you can smell the trees and see the beautiful mountains. The further I got, the more tired I started to feel. The next stop wasn't for a while, but I figured if necessary I could always just rest my eyes for a little while on the shoulder of the highway. I can feel my head bobbing and my eyes are getting heavy. It's about 3 a.m. now. It's pitch black out, and I've been on the road for over 12 hours. I thought I saw someone or something move on the side of the road. Maybe a deer or some wild animal. I turned on my high beams looking ahead for something crossing, and just at the edge of my headlights, I see a little girl run out into the street. I slammed on my brakes and jumped out of the rig, but there was nothing there. No blood, no body, no dent in the grill. I had to hurry and get to the next rest station. Finally, just on the horizon, I could see the lights at the rest station up ahead. I pulled in and rested for the night. I slept in that morning, woke up around 12:45, still in shock of what I had seen last night, or what I thought I saw. I got back on the road and arrived in Toronto later that afternoon. As the trailer was being unloaded, I decided to call my dad and tell him about the crazy night I had. I walked out in front of the truck, and as the phone was ringing, I saw a little bit of hair stuck in the grill. After saving up for a road trip on a hot July day, me, Shelley, Connor, and Sebastian decided to go on a crew road trip, wherever the road went. That was until we hit Gable Town. I realized we were running low on gas when we hit Gable Town, and there was a gas station. A man dressed up in cowboy boots and a hat with blue overalls saying, "Well, howdy, partner. Looking for some gavel gas to fill her up?" I checked the bank account and said, "How much was the gas?" 99 cents per liter, the man said. "Name's Roy, by the way." We all looked at each other shocked. "You're messing with us," Connor said. "How much is gas where you're from?" Roy asked. I told him $1.73 a liter. "Well, we get it straight from the refinery over here. None of this outsourcing baloney you city folks love." We filled up, paid Roy, and wished him well. "By the way, it's getting dark. Make sure you check in a motel here," Roy told us before we left. We checked in the motel. It was old, run down, barren looking, and abandoned. I rang the bell. Nothing. Then after my friend piped up, "Hello? Anyone here?" An old frail man walked up. This man looked so old he looked at least 100 years old. "Room 107, here's your key," the man said with a very raspy tone, like the tone of death walking over him. Sebastian reluctantly took the key, and the man had an iron grip. We got into our rooms and it smelled stank, but it was stable. As the sun drove down, Sebastian looked pale. At the screen on his phone was a Gavel Town and the news headline reading, 120 dead after gas explosion at Gavel Town plant. Workers found burned and charred all over. "I was alive when that happened," the old man said. "The bodies recovered looked like you cremated them halfway then stopped. My friend Joe worked at the plant. He had a 5-inch blade lodged right into his eye and head. He was never the same since. Ever since that day, this town has been cursed. Monsters and freaks come out at night." We all laughed until we realized this man's expression was dead serious, and there was no joke in his raspy voice. He then left the room. That night we heard Shelley scream and then suddenly stopped with a few loud bangs. I pulled out my pistol ready to shoot whomever got into the bathroom that she was in, and give him what for. I opened the door and Shelley was unrecognizable in a puddle of blood with flesh and bones scattered across the floor as if she got butchered. Her head was decapitated and her face smashed in. I pointed my gun to the shower, cocked and loaded, and pulled the curtain to see a man laughing with blood dripping and metal hinge slammed into his right eye. I didn't hesitate and shot him 5 times in the back. The sound of gunshots alerted Connor and Sebastian, and I ordered them to get the hell out of this room. When they evacuated, I took it and locked the door. No sign of the old man. I checked my phone. No data. Shit, I stated disappointedly. I still dialed 911 hoping an operator would pick up. There was a static reception with a weird radio sound. The white noise was unbearable until a growling voice boomed, "Eat, gas, hurt." Then the call ended. Connor stared at the window and Sebastian slammed him in the back in a friendly manner, saying, "Staring at the wilderness, eh?" "No. A girl in white," replied Connor. "Mate, have you been taking acid again?" asked Sebastian. "No," replied Connor. "All right, Joker, I know you probably did some hallucinogenic drug to be tripping. There was no girl in..." He was interrupted by a figure of white peering right through the glass, just standing, watching. As I gather my stuff to leave, I hear the sound of grunting breaths. "Connor, stop messing with us." "It wasn't me," Connor said. "Connor's been tripping on acid again," Sebastian chimed in jokingly. "Shut the hell up, Sebastian," replied Connor. "Just 'cause she left you for some pimp doesn't give you an excuse to simp for some mysterious stranger that is probably some goddamn demon trying to drag you to be the devil's dog," said Sebastian angrily. "Guys, enough," I shouted. Then the man with the shard in his right eye grabbed me with his cold hands. Sebastian jumped and stabbed him right in the shoulder blade. The blood dripped from his shoulder. I then sprayed bleach into his remaining eye and Connor kicked him in the head. Pus and blood dripping everywhere. We run out of the motel. "Start the damn car with some freak after us," shouted Sebastian. "And Shelley is dead," replied Connor. We drove to an abandoned library and snuck in. Over the shelves, we find a book labeled Gaveltown Gas Refinery Chapter 27, Disaster at the Refinery. It seems like someone intentionally ignited it, said Connor. The pages showed all burned bodies, some roasted to a crisp, a picture of someone vomiting black tar blood, and another photo of two people dragging a body of worker's face who had melted straight off. The following article after the pictures read, Gas refinery explosion kills 32, 300 people still missing. July 8, 1981. It was rumored in the article that someone had put chlorine gas in one of the tanks and ignited it, setting off an explosion that left a trail of deadly gas into the town. The explosion was believed to have disturbed various nearby native burial grounds, with the respective elders extremely unhappy with this disaster. One elder was supposedly so vindictive that he cursed the land of Gavel, leading to its downfall. The time the government put Gavel off the map was 2011, 12 years ago. Someone infiltrated the refineries with chlorine gas, I said. It wasn't chlorine, Connor replied. What? We all said. The first explosion was reported in the north tank, allegedly abandoned. Yet all of the burned bodies were found in that tank. The gas looked no different to normal gas, and can be commonly produced of gasoline. Folks, what we are looking at is H2S, hydrogen sulfide. It is likely the burned bodies were already dead before the explosion, as well as the flames from the nearby well agitated and ignited the rest of the refinery plants, Connor said. How do you know this? Sebastian asked. I worked with chemicals, Connor replied. Out of all my years, I never thought it would be a bunch of goddamn kids to figure it out. An old, raspy voice said as the sound of a gun cocking was ready. I quickly pulled out mine. The hell you on about, old man? Shouldn't you be working at your hotel? I asked. He laughed. I thought Vincent would have taken care of you, the guy you shot, the old man said. He's still alive and is still after you. I don't give a shit about killing him. I don't want to. We don't want anybody dead. So how about we put the guns down and talk? I asked. You think a bunch of kids like you will keep a secret? With how you spill your life stories on that TikTok and Instagram? And what's that ghost one? The old man said. Not a chance in hell I'm risking it coming out. You three will die. I don't know what came of me, but I shot the gun and he went down. Blood dripping down his leg, he dropped his gun. As he tried reaching for his gun, I stomped on his arm, hearing a bone snap. The old man was screaming in pain. We gotta get out of here, I told my friends. We ran out of the building into the foggy woods. The smoke was a radioactive green color. Then the man that attacked us earlier popped up quickly, shot him in the chest. He toppled over and fell off the hill. Blood dripping until I heard a snap. I don't know why I checked, but I wish I didn't. A piece of his clothing snagged onto a tree branch, but was too strong to snap. So the man that had attacked us earlier was limp, blood soaking out of his chest from where I shot him, limp as a board. I told my friends to get out of here, but one of them decided to grab the book from the abandoned library about the explosion. We sped off down the road and near the local sheriff's office and exclaimed we drove past Gaveltown and there was an attack, and one of our friends was dead. The sheriff looked at us and raised his eyebrows. Kids, do you know how long it's been since people lived down there? We shook our heads. 1993, finished the sheriff. We took that town off the map because people kept complaining that they were attacked by mad people. Your friend must have been murdered by the Gavel cult that sometimes uses those areas. Was one of them a very old man? I asked. You saw him? Asked the sheriff. We have been hunting him for years. Yeah, he tried to kill us, but I disarmed him in the abandoned center, I said. The following day, the bodies of Shelley and the man that attacked us were recovered. Autopsies given show that the man died of natural causes, but the old man was still alive with a broken arm. The hate in his eyes burned a memory into my brain when I saw him being escorted by the police. He motioned with his hand, implying he will one day kill us. We drove off, never to return to Gaveltown. This is a creepy story that happened when I was 6. Let's start at the beginning. We went to Mount Adams for 4 days camping trip with my mom, little brother, Poppy, his dog, and girlfriend. We were going to camp by one of the lakes up there, but all the spots were taken. We went up the mountain a little more and found an okay spot. It was in an area where there was no trees, bushes, grass, or anything, so we could have a fire. The creepy stuff started at one of the lakes. If you've been there, you know the lakes have some drop-offs, but not a big deal. I was a good swimmer for my age. I was swimming before I could walk, so I knew to float and stuff. When we got there, I went swimming, but it was strange as soon as I got in the water. I had this feeling of dread and overwhelming fear. It wasn't my feelings though. Thought it was someone else's. Then all of a sudden I was under the water. I don't think I was in my body. It seems crazy, but I think I was living someone else's memory. I was underwater as if it was cold but warm at the same time. I looked up and reached for the surface, but it was too far. I couldn't breathe or cry for help. I felt tired and I gave up. I dropped my hand and let go. I was really cold and it all went black. I woke up and I was still in the same spot I was standing in, only up to my knees. I got out of the water after that and I was scared I would see it again. When we left, we went back to the camp that night. I had the same scary feeling again. I couldn't explain it, but I was so scared, and so was my little brother, and even slept with a gun under my pillow with the clip next to it. My Poppy's dog was flipping out, and this dog was raised in the woods and saw and heard things that nobody else noticed, so we couldn't understand why he was flipping. The dinner that night wasn't much better. Bugs kept flying into it. We all went to bed, me and my mom and little brother in the tent, Poppy's girlfriend in the car, and Poppy in the hammock. It was hard, but we all fell asleep. The next morning, Poppy's girlfriend said she saw something in the sky, moving in a triangle. Then it would stop and disappear. Then it would happen again. The day we hung out under some trees about 50 yards away from us. There we felt a little scared, but not as bad. It was day, so whatever was there, we would see it. That night, the dog was flipping out, but way worse. We were afraid the dog was going to give itself a heart attack. The next morning, bright and early, we packed up and got the hell out of there. We haven't been back. Unless you like her naturalness and aliens, I don't recommend camping on Mount Adams. Hello, and thank you so much if you made it to the end of the video. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to let me know that you'd like to see more content like this. If you have any stories you'd like to share that could be in a future video, make sure to head over to Reddit, or you can send it through email. My Reddit and email will be shown on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good morning, evening, or night. Bye guys!